that Elon Musk has said will be 5 to 10 times better with less engagements per mile. What's also quite big is that this version will no longer have the nag and a new driver monitoring system. Second, the Cybertruck ramp seems to be gaining speed as now hundreds of the vehicles are being seen together outside of Austin. 200 arrive in Chicago this weekend. And it looks like that the 0.99 financing might actually be helping Teslas make more sales in Model Y. Third, Tesla's shareholders are being asked to please vote for two very important proposals for the upcoming annual meeting of stockholders. Alexander Mertz explains the reason why it's that much harder to get the vote for reincorporation to Texas. Both Elon Musk and Tesla weighed in. And finally, Ford Motor Company has issued a call for help asking their suppliers to reduce costs on electric vehicles. They're bleeding billions of dollars. I've got Jeff Lutz joining us, and Jeff is an ex-chief supply chain officer at multiple Fortune 100 companies. He's actually running his own consulting firm, and you'll see that he's got a lot of experience in this areas. Thank you, Jeff.
Great to be with you, Herbert.
Lots of stories.
Yeah, lots of
a
stuff
number of
going
them
on.
are big breaking news. Let's get going to the big ones. So this is version 12.4 is hotly anticipated. It's now here, being rolled out to employees. And recently, we've seen that as soon as it's rolled out to employees, it gets out to the public very quickly. But included in there is this new vision-based attention monitoring and autopilot suspension. This is from Not a Tesla app. It includes a new vision-based attention monitoring system, and the steering nag is removed. Before we get there, this was a post by Elon Musk, a few days, less than a week ago, but it said that 12.4 it's going to go to internal release this weekend, and that's what happened, and limited external beta next week. Okay, so we do need to wait a week, but roughly 5 times to 10 times improvement in miles per intervention versus 12.3. This is a big, big deal. 12.5 will come out late June. What's your thoughts about this release?
Yeah, make no mistake that the nag being reduced is directly proportional to the performance of the release itself. Remember, Tesla is capturing unit and system test data internally on the release. They're able to do simulations, they're able to do and gather a lot of information internally before the release is put out to a broader audience. So that decision to reduce the nag is in my opinion directly correlated to the performance of the release. And that it's a wide estimate of 5 to 10x improvement, but this starts becoming, fairly significant if we have a couple of these types of releases in a row. And it actually makes the number of miles more important, because Tesla doesn't just need gross miles. They need miles with, interventions. They need to see more of them. And as the release improves, they're going to get less interventions per mile driven. So it's almost like those two things are kind of working against each other, but in general, the releases are improving dramatically. And that decision to reduce the nag, remember, this is the steering wheel nag. The cabin camera is going to be looking and making sure that you're, watching the road. So this is going to be one of those interesting things to tune, because I remember when they first put out the cabin camera attention, software, there were some issues with it, and certain, if you're wearing a hat or not, and so forth. So, their ability to get this right, they've been working on this cabin camera software for, I think, over a year or more, I think is going to be a critical piece of the equation. So this is exciting. It looks like employees, it's rolling out now, and probably, to outside users, customers, probably, in days, maybe a week later.
Okay, let's go through the actual notes of what's going to happen. This is the 2024.9.5 release notes coming out soon. Vision-based attention monitoring. Okay, this is a camera that's in cabin. The driver monitoring system now primarily relies on the cabin camera to determine driver attentiveness. Again, very few cars has this in-cabin camera. People don't realize this. This enhancement is available in vehicles equipped with a cabin camera, and only when the cabin camera has clear and continuous visibility of the driver's eyes. The camera is not included. There is sufficient cabin illumination, and the driver is looking forward at the road ahead and not wearing sunglasses, a hat, and a low brim, or the objects covering the eyes. Outside of these circumstances, the driver monitoring system will continue to rely on a combination of torque-based, the steering wheel, and vision-based monitoring to detect driver attentiveness. So if the camera detects the driver to be inattentive, a warning will appear. The warning will be can be dismissed by the driver, immediately reverting their attention back to the road ahead. Oh, great. Just by looking forward, that's it, solves it. Warnings will escalate depending on the nature and frequency of detected inattentiveness, with continuous inattention leading to a strikeout. Ah, my God, this is a great system. Cabin camera images do not leave the vehicle itself, which means the system cannot save or transmit information unless you enable data sharing. And then this is how they're going to deal with these kind of autopilot suspension. It used to be that when you get a strikeout, 3 strikeouts and you're out kind of thing, and you can't reinstall it. But now, one autopilot strikeout will be forgiven for each 7-day period in which you do not receive any strikeouts. So each time you receive a strikeout, this timer will restart. So once you get these strikeouts, you can remove them by just driving well. The FSD supervised feature can only be removed per the suspension method, and it will be unavailable for approximately 1 week. What do you think about that, Jeff?
Yeah, I like the changes. This is promoting good behavior. I don't think the system is 100% any kind of vision-based system. They've got to tune and dial this in for various, head types and facial structures. But it sounds like they're pretty close to getting this right. So I'd be interested to see what the kind of the false positive, false negative rate is on this. But we won't see that data. It'll be internal to Tesla. So this seems like a better approach that's really focused on the highest order bit, which is the person in the driver's seat looking ahead and paying attention. So I think, even if you start closing your eyes, this thing will go off as if you're nodding to sleep. So this seems like a better solution. It gets rid of all the defeat devices out there as well that were being used. I like it.
I like it too. And it's really is another feature that shows we're headed towards Robotaxi. So there's a lot of debate going on. People think that robotaxis in China are incredible and they're working well. CNBC actually did a video of them hailing a Baidu. And so let's take a look and let's see what your thoughts are on this. You actually responded to people who are saying robotaxis are already working in China. And you said cars with drivers, only certain areas drive. So this is the Baidu. We can watch a little bit of CNBC's kind of video, and you're replying to that saying, well, they said that 50% of their 500 cars actually come with a driver sitting there and not touching the steering wheel, but ready to supervise it. 50% are autonomous, but it could be that they're teleoperated. You go, how many are teleoperated? And then they only restrict. You can only get in there if it's a variety of criteria. And one of them is you have to have a strong heart, those kind of things. No children, no pregnant women. So when you hear people stating things are fact with no data, question everything, because you have so many people just continuing to say that the Baidu system is so much better, despite us explaining last week that Baidu's general manager said that they're very open to participating and cooperating with Tesla and licensing Tesla. So I can play a little bit of this just so you guys can watch it. And then you've got your reply to that. So let's you said you replied to her saying, please ask Baidu, how many interventions per kilometer driven? What percentage of the robotaxis are teleoperated? Do they split out financial reporting? And what is the break-even point? And then do they get state? Great questions, Jeff. Let's get there first. Before that, let me play just a little bit of her video.
I'm at my hotel in Wuhan, and I'm going out to dinner. And I decided that I'm going to take Baidu's self-driving Robotaxi. You need a special app. But not everyone can ride. A notice pops up and warns, no young children, pregnant women, elderly, the infirm, or anyone with a bad heart. I'm in the right part of town to get the service, but the app says that I need to walk about 100 feet to get to the closest station to board the Robotaxi. The trip costs about $3, and thanks to steep discounts, that's about the same as a regular taxi. We got one, and it's coming in 15 minutes. So here's the Robotaxi, but there's a driver inside. The staffer told us to catch an unmanned cab, we needed to go to another pickup point. Less than half of the taxis still come with safety personnel. We did, and another showed with another assistant. Finally, we got one without a human. Wait, no one is inside except for us. We're on our way, but we're moving kind of slowly, about 30 miles an hour. On China's notoriously chaotic roads, the Robotaxi drove up a ramp, made a U-turn, and negotiated its way around bikers riding tandem and a timid driver. In an emergency, you press this for help. So it took us a little bit of time, but we finally got here. The Baidu Robo service is 24/7, and it looks like the car is going to go off for another trip.
Okay, Jeff, what's your reaction to that video?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in that city of Wuhan in China. It's like they call it the Chicago of China, and so it's kind of an industrious, grid city. And my thoughts is there's just a lot of conversation about what we think is happening in the world of robotaxis or EVs, and it's really important to be able to actually experience and understand what's actually going on in the ground. And I've spent a lot of time working in China, a lot of time in the city that Eunice is in. She's a great reporter, by the way. And what I would be surprised if you would see any kind of significant, local reporting on if there was an accident or if there were a series of issues like you saw with Cruise here in San Francisco. I would be surprised if you would actually see that reporting make it, into their kind of state-sponsored television. But in terms of, let's get the facts out on the table. The facts out on the table is that greater than 50% of this Baidu Robotaxi service is actually has a human driver behind the wheel. I think that's important to know. We don't know what percent of these vehicles are teleoperated, meaning is there somebody with a remote control that's, getting vehicles in and out of jams. We know that this was occurring every few miles with the Cruise system in the US. We know it happens in China. We just don't have any of the specifics in terms of the data. We just know that it's happening. Then the other thing is the financials, and they have broken out, the financials for this before, or at least commented on it, being, getting to break even potentially at some point in the future, which means this 500 taxi service is a money loser, right now. And the question is what amount of scale is needed for this to be accretive, and to what gross margins could it be accretive to? Then you have to really look at the whole system as like what's doing the perception in the vehicle, what's doing the inference, how much are do these vehicles cost? I know they've been able to get the cost structure down in China on robotaxis, which is good. But if you have to go back and start asking some of the basic questions, and instead of just saying like China has a robotaxi service and it's working and there's 500 of them, well, is it profitable? Yes or no? The answer right now is no. And is there some level of scale where it becomes profitable? And does it become meaningfully profitable? Is it greater than 30-40% gross margin? Is this a meaningful business for them? And it's not clear. It's not clear their ability to scale beyond cities. And so there's a lot of questions. So I think the bottom line is everything is not what we think it is, or just when you hear a one-liner of they're doing robotaxi, Tesla is not the first, but you have to understand like what the companies are actually doing, both from a technology perspective, the ability to volume scale. So the ability to go from a small number of streets, a small number of cars, to all the streets and millions of cars. Okay. And the third thing is the profitability of that solution, before scale, and how many months or years will it take you to get this scale? And once you're at scale, what is the profitability of that solution? So if you're not able to answer all of those questions, or at least have a basic understanding of them, and I guess the first thing under technology will also be the limitations. She said the vehicle was driving probably under 30 miles an hour. It was kind of doing some awkward things. No women or no pregnant women or children in the vehicle. You have to have a strong, what are these limitations that are on the system right now? Like what? And she had to walk a pretty far distance to get a taxi, and that we know that last couple hundred of feet is one of the big issues with Robotaxi services, and how does it actually meet the consumer. So if you don't really understand those three things around the technology, its ability to volume scale, and the third thing, it's profitability, then I don't think you can have a really good conversation, a really helpful conversation around robotaxis. And Tesla appears to be building a solution that fits all three of those criteria, and its ability to scale from a volume and from a profitability perspective seem to be there. And I think that's, to me, the key takeaway. Finally, there's some that think that this could be easily copied. I do believe that Tesla will not be alone on an island doing robotaxis at scale. I do believe that over a period of time that others will join, and maybe at different approaches or different angles. They may scale a different way. Maybe they are doing a geofence solution. But I think there's going to be a period of time, a fairly lengthy period of time, and a fairly big advantage from a COGS and gross margin perspective that Tesla will have, and the ability to license their solution as well, and to have others build robotaxi. I think Tesla's going to have this advantage. So to think like this is this is the seatbelt, or this is some other invention. I've heard other analysts say like things that get invented in auto get copied pretty quickly. A lot of what's happening here with FSD doesn't actually physically exist inside of the vehicle. It's happening on the network infrastructure, on the training side, the logic, everything involved with how do you get this entire system to work and be tuned and calibrated for great safety, great performance. That's happening actually physically outside of the vehicle. And I don't think many understand that.
Yeah. So 2 points. I think one is, this idea that, well, Baidu is already doing robotaxi. Tesla's not. If Tesla wanted to, they could easily match this and beat this if they wanted to do this at this point. They have a different strategy, and it'll come out and make this kind of this experiment that these companies are doing look like child's play. And the second one is, if Baidu's really that good, if they're really, really, really just amazing, and they're on their way to solving robotaxi, in fact, they announced that they're going to be profitable next year, they're going to double from 500 to 1,000, then why would the GM of their autopilot autonomous driving division, why would he then say we'd be very open to cooperating with Tesla and partnering with them? So thank you for addressing that. This is a debate that continues to happen on X, and people are just continuing to understand and misunderstand. So when they see a video like this, they think it's positive, but in fact, it's not. So you brought up a lot of good points there. Let's talk Cybertruck. Cybertruck, it looks like it's working. It's doing really well. Things are, looks like the ramp is improving. You can tell me more about that, but 200 Cybertrucks have arrived in Chicago. Buyers will take delivery soon. You live in Chicago. And so let's take a look at this video here. This is the parking lot and
the railway yard.
Dang,
yeah,
that's a lot.
There's a lot of them.
That's a lot.
And they're being distributed. I think they arrived early last week, and they're being distributed to several of the service centers. So there really hasn't been a lot in Chicago, maybe a handful up until this point. Yeah, this is a video at one of the delivery centers. There were 18 of them at this delivery center just a few days after that railroad yard picture. So this is happening. And I think one of the reasons we wanted to show this to people is, from looking at the VINs and looking at, I think the first takeaway is all the drone footage used to be of Giga Texas. Oh, look, there's 60 in the lot. There's 100 in the lot. There's 200. There's 400. Now we're starting to see hundreds of Cybertrucks not in Giga Texas. They're at major regional locations being readied for distribution. To me, we are now entering another stage of the ramp where we're going from hundreds per week to potentially, over 1,000 and then thousands per week. And that you start hitting different points of the S curve where it's not going to be as linear as it was before. So it feels like somewhere between March and April, Tesla must have solved a series of problems or a series of challenges on the engineering and yield side. I also believe if we and Alexander did a great job of this a couple months ago, maybe 4 to 6 months ago, they listed the jobs for the second shift for Cybertruck in Texas. So what I believe, and knowing my understanding of knowing these timelines to like hire and ramp up a factory, is they probably, one of the other scenarios is that shift would have started by just doing bottleneck processes only from the first shift that is fully staffed. And then as they hire more and more people, then they'll actually become their own shift and do their own end-to-end processing. So that could be happening now. We would need Tesla to confirm that shift is up and running, but at a minimum, they're certainly probably processing through the bottlenecks from the prior shift, and if not, they're their own shift. So I think that has actually helped us get now from the dozens per week to hundreds to now probably north of 1,000, because I was looking at the VINs, and someone else posted about this as well online. It looks like I'm starting to see maybe north of 100, 150, maybe 200. If I saw a build date on, May 9th, and I saw a build date on May 10th. And again, these VINs are not linear in terms of how they're assigned. So just be careful. You kind of have to take a grain of salt, but it looks like there's hundreds now between days. And so this leads me to believe that they could, that there was a week, I guess, in April where they hit over 1,000. And I believe they're probably going to be able to do that more consistently now in May, and then really take that up over the next quarter. So this is exciting. And I think Tesla's doing quite well from a COGS perspective as well. This is going to be challenging. We're only 5-6 months into the ramp, so there's no way that that they've gotten this down to their terminal COGS level. But the fact that they're able to sell the vehicle for about $20,000 more, where some of the upgrades are software related and some peripherals that are lower cost, that's really helping them from a gross margin perspective. But obviously there's more work to do. But in summary, we went from hundreds, in the Austin lot, to now hundreds in regional lots, and now this thing is really, to me, gotten to the next level of scale. They're probably at a 50,000 per year run rate is what I would estimate, and I think they could potentially leave the quarter at 60 or 65K per year run rate. Doesn't mean that they're going to hit 60 or 65 this year, but the weekly rate times 50 or 52 is what I'm referring to.
Okay. I was hoping you'd say a number higher. That's okay. So great news about Cybertruck. It's on its way. Another potentially big news, you pointed this out. This Christopher Dungeon picked up a Cyberbeast on Saturday, and he said he had a rewarding side conversation with a Tesla employee. They shared 2 bits of information that we might find interesting. So first, the Cyberbeast ratio is less than 10% of all Cybertruck deliveries. Okay, interesting. Not great. Nothing interesting to me. But this one, Model Y, the 0.99% financing that was released recently, was the reason my delivery window got kicked back an hour. They said that their delivery center is doing double the Model Y volume since Tesla made the announcement. Things have been crazy since then. This is working. It's growing. Thoughts on that, Jeff?
Yeah, and I don't think this is, I think this is just this is a conversation of, hey, we lowered the rates, and guess what? We've got a lot more delivery. So I don't think there's anything there that's like, that shouldn't have been said. But I think what we're seeing, and I've seen this too in some of the delivery centers around me, is it looks like the volume is really picked up with the 0.99 on the Y, and also the Model 3 leasing became, and I think they're getting more and more Model 3s in supply now, and the Model 3 leasing deal improved. So it looks like Tesla's doing is they're stabilizing the MSRP, and what that helps with the used car market, that helps with vehicle resale value, that helps it helps them on the gross margin side. And they're taking this approach of looking at leasing and financing, and we don't know what deals Tesla is doing downstream with the banks, but I'm assuming the conversation is something on the order of, everyone else has kind of pulled back in EV, and we make the best vehicles, and our sales are doing quite well. So if you support these vehicles from a financing or a leasing program perspective, you're probably going to do okay as a bank. Whereas I think the last couple of years have been choppy since COVID, and the vehicles, were definitely accelerated in value and then have had to come off of that peak. So I think between the financing deals and the leasing deals, it's really starting in North America. Now Tesla's got to catch up on the Model 3 supply, but this is why I always keep, and you see me commenting on X about this, is like when people they were looking at Y in April and like, oh my God, the inventory is higher than this is the one that kills me. It's higher than it's ever been. Like, it doesn't mean anything. What companies do is they plan these promotions weeks and months in advance. And then once the promotion is planned, like Tesla knew whatever the date was, May, 9th or 10th, that they're going to start this promotion. And what they do is in advance of that, they tell they send a signal to their supply base as well as their factories, and they kick up supply. And you want inventory. What you want to do is you want to increase that sellout rate during this promotional period. The worst thing you could have is put a promotion on or spend any money on advertising and then have lumpy supply or have no supply. Lumpy supply is you need 10 and you have 4. You need 12 and you have 8. What you want is you want continuous supply while this promotional window is on. You want to sell out as many as possible. So that's why these delivery centers are probably going nuts with deliveries and having to make sure they kick in their extra capacity. And by the way, this is great that they're going nuts in the middle of May versus on June 29th, June 30th. So and this helps Tesla in terms of inbound supply. Remember, if you're trying to do a delivery wave at the end of the quarter, you're expediting logistics. So inbound, very heavy. These vehicles are very heavy. You're expediting logistics. You're expediting inbound logistics, getting components into the factory. So the way that the ability for Tesla to do these things in the middle of the quarter versus at the end of the quarter, when everybody's expediting logistics inbound, outbound at the end of a quarter. And so therefore these freight forwarder partners know this, and their rates kick up, and their capacities is physically lower, and the rates do have to be higher. So I really like this move of doing the promotional activity in the middle of quarters. And if they keep it on, great. As long as it's good for them, it's good for the banks, it's fine. But I really like where Tesla's doing this. I think it's going to be very helpful. And remember, so here's what does this mean to consumers? If you buy financing down from 6.5% to 9% down to 0.99, over a 6-year loan, you're saving many thousands, 6, 7. I mean, you're saving several thousands of dollars for consumers. So their monthly rate is going to be lower by probably $70 to $100 or something in that area. So this starts to become really meaningful for consumers. So I love this approach by Tesla.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, let's talk about the next big topic that's very important. Tesla needs us to vote. The annual stockholder meeting is happening in June 13th, but even before that, you should be able to already start voting now. There's 2 specific proposals that Tesla needs. We need as Tesla investors. Alexander Mertz put this out. She said, let's help Tesla understand which brokers and banks do not support proxy voting. Apparently, there's quite a number of banks and brokers that are not supporting this. They're not making it easy for Tesla investors to vote. And so she said, fill out the survey. Those who experience issues, please fill out the survey. I will collect all the data and transfer it to Tesla in the coming days. Participate and share widely. If you have issues with multiple brokers and banks, fill out multiple surveys by clearing the cache or using different browsers. Okay, so Elon thought this was important. He retweeted this, reposted it on X. Please let us know if you have any difficulties voting your Tesla stock. In addition to that, Tesla themselves put out this post. We have put forward 2 especially important proposals for our annual meeting of stockholders, and we need your vote. Protect your rights as stockholders and protect the value of your investment by voting. Vote for the ratification of the 2018 CEO Performance Award and vote for reincorporating Tesla in Texas. Let us watch that video that they released that they wanted us to watch here.
The goal is to give people hope that there is a path to a fully sustainable global economy, that we are on that path, that we are accelerating that path, and that so long as we don't get complacent about it, it will happen.
This was really the beginning of the end of the Tesla bubble. I actually think the company could go bust.
Tesla's Model Y is the world's best-selling car, beating out Toyota's RAV4 and its Corolla models.
Regarding FSD version 12, it's profound. The rate of improvement is rapid. It might be the biggest asset value appreciation in history when you can do unsupervised full self-driving.
I mean, it just sounds like a story stock, autonomous taxi. I mean, can you really balance your checkbook with, sort of pie in the sky predictions like that?
If you ask the wrong question, the right answer is impossible.
My prediction is that a majority of Tesla's long-term value will be Optimus. And that prediction I'm very confident of.
It's very rare a product comes along that is seemingly impossible, that experts said would never be made. And this is one of those times. Finally, the future will look like the future. People say, like, why'd you make it bulletproof? I'm like, why not?
Energy storage deployments, the Megapack in particular, reached an all-time high in Q1, leading to record profitability for the energy business.
This is the machine that builds the machine, and the factory is the product. And this building is the most advanced car factory that Earth has ever seen.
If you value Tesla as an auto company, it's just the wrong framework. If somebody doesn't believe Tesla's going to solve autonomy, I think they should not be an investor in the company. But we will. And we are.
Okay, so we need to vote. If you are a Tesla investor, you have not voted yet, please go check out our all of our X accounts. You got Jeff Lutz, myself, Alexander Mertz. You got instructions of how to vote. You can see the value that Elon provides. What's your thoughts on this, Jeff?
Yeah, definitely go to Alexander's account. She's been not only getting the word out, but really actually leading to solve problems that block. I can't believe how many retail investors own shares of a company but can't vote against their shares of the company. That's wild. There's a lot of retail ownership of Tesla too. So I'm surprised to see how many holders of the stock actually can't make their voice heard. And to me, that's actually the bigger crime in all of this. It's not this judge's ruling. The judge's ruling is a significant problem, but I wish that, the judges, I wish the systems involved here would actually focus on allowing people to even have a voice to vote, much less trying to get in their heads and try to understand what they knew or didn't know at the time. So yeah, I think this is very important. I think, as an investor, you need to scenario plan in your head, the various outcomes of what could happen here. But there's a tremendous amount of value and assets that have been created inside of Tesla. So to think that, what's going to happen if the vote goes one way or another, I think this is going to be a tough one to actually predict. But the question I would ask people that I'm not going to tell people, you vote the way you think, but if you're not voting for this, like, what are you actually voting for? Can you actually describe the organization chart, the leadership, the culture, the projects, and the vision of the company by voting no? Like, for all those aspects I just named, like, what do you see on the other side of it? It's certainly not clear to me. It's very clear if Elon's the leader of the company, and it's very clear to me if Tesla has the autonomy where their main headquarters are, to act and conduct business. To me, then the future is very clear. But and they still have to execute. But with what happened in Delaware, and to me, that it makes it more difficult for them and other companies. You can't be targeted. Many legal scholars have looked at this and they're just like, yeah, I read it. There's a 200-page ruling from the judge. It's well written. But 100 times out of 100, is this really going to be the ruling from 100 different judges? Probably not. That's my opinion. Put 100 other CEOs through that same filter and 100 other companies through that same filter. I don't think you're getting a majority response that would rule against the company. So anyway, that's just my take on it. But please, Alexandra, go to her account and if you have any questions about voting your shares or how to physically get to the process of voting, she has great information on it and is doing a great job.
Well, the reason why this is so critical is that it's even a lot harder than people realize to vote for the reincorporation in Texas. So this is Financial Times, and they said on the new pay vote, a simple majority of votes must be in favor, excluding those owned by Musk and his brother Kimball. Okay. However, the path to reincorporate in Texas, this is steeper. This requires different kind of criteria. It requires a majority of all shares outstanding. Those not cast are counted as no. So if you don't cast your vote, they will consider that as a no. And Robin Denholm, who's this chairwoman of Tesla, she said, it's like Mount Everest. It's a huge hill to climb because getting 50% of the shareholders to vote, let alone what they vote for, is quite tough. So if you look at Alexander Mertz, Tesla Boomer Mama on X, she was able to clarify. Thank you to Ken Jacobs, Esquire, lawyer, making it easier to understand. To sum it up, in order for the vote to re-domesticate to Texas to pass, two different criteria have to be both fulfilled. The first is that from all outstanding votes, that's 3.189 billion shares, 50% plus must vote have to be for the move. And Elon and Kimball can vote here, but also at the same time, you need this criteria from all the casted votes, 50% or more have to be for the move, and Elon and Kimball cannot vote here. In order for the compensation plan to advance, there will be a new law case in Delaware for this to be ratified. Thereafter, 3 criteria have to be all fulfilled, but much easier as they are all linked only to casted votes. 50% of the casted votes, right? But the other one, it has to be just, if you don't vote, it will consider it as no. This is concerning, Elon said. Tesla will reach out to these banks and brokers. Shareholders have the right to vote their shares. He's referring to the fact that, as people start filling out that survey, there's so many Tesla shareholders who are having difficulty to vote. You need to vote, and this is an issue that's being faced out there. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, to me, this is like I said, it's the most concerning thing that you own shares in a company and you can't vote on major decisions that are put forth in front of the shareholders. So this has to be fixed. On the Robin Denholm, those were clearly targeted, timed articles in the Financial Times and Wall Street Journal, and the Mount Everest comment I think has unnerved some people, and I think Tesla has a realistic view of what could happen. And I hope that the fact that they're going public with that kind of information means that there's a tremendous amount of planning happening in the background between them that say, like, all right, the vote goes this way, this is what we do, the vote goes this way, this is what we do, and they act quickly, they act with force, it's clearly communicated. Like the second that vote is out there, boom, then there should be a whole comm strategy based on the results of that vote. Launch this comm strategy very quickly and have it ready to go. Speed, clarity, leadership, and information, crisp information is very critical during this time period. Otherwise, you can have shareholders going off all over the place. So I think the most important thing Tesla could be doing right now is helping unblock people who own shares of their company so they can actually vote against their shares. I think they've done the kind of the comms work in terms of like the importance of getting the vote out. They need to continue just playing that. But the most important thing that they could be doing is having those comms, having the real scenarios ready based on the results of the vote, and having the comm strategy ready to launch within minutes of the vote being publicized.
All right, so we got the next bit news here is the Ford Motor Company. This is this is pretty concerning. They came out and they announced that they are calling to action to their suppliers, asking for help to reduce the cost on electric vehicle production because Ford is bleeding billions of dollars on electric vehicles. Thank you for Brian Basson. I liked what he wrote here. Basically from Reuters, there's a memo apparently. Ford asked suppliers to reduce costs in any way possible. It's in our best interest that we are able to deliver affordable EV products to our customers. To ensure affordability, it is of paramount importance that our portfolio achieves further levels of material cost efficiency. This is coming from Liz Dorr, who is Ford's Chief Supply Chain Officer. She wrote those words and said, everything is on the table. Consider this a call to action. Now, Jeff, you are a Chief Supply Chain Officer. You understand this. I'm wondering if you would ever seen this before. And then you're saying tough call when you're running at less than 25% of what you told them to tool up for. This call works when your volumes are stable or increasing, or you're the largest game in town. Jeff, super curious, your opinion. This is your wheelhouse. Is this why is Ford doing this? They're bleeding billions. Can even they do this? Yeah.
So the call to action part, I don't have a problem with, which is if you have ideas as a supplier, I'm the chief supply chain officer of the company, and I'm asking you to write those down and get them to my team, get them to me if you're not getting a response from my team. I don't have a problem with that. But to send this message out to suppliers, if this indeed happened, and followed by probably 5 successive volume cuts over the last year. Remember, it wasn't too long ago when they were signaling a 600,000 unit annualized run rate in 2024, maybe even 2023. Maybe I'm getting my years mixed up. And they're probably running, less than a quarter of that. And that's a big problem for suppliers, because when they signaled that 600K run rate, those suppliers that they're using went out and bought up material to whatever, bought up capacity. Think about, tool and die machines, think about labor, think about other forms of CapEx, measurement, inspection equipment, conveyance, robotics, you name it. They went out and, because when, Ford's a big company, and when they say, hey, I need you to get ready for this kind of volume, you go and get ready for that volume. And I'm sure Ford had engineers going and auditing, saying, hey, are you ready for this volume? And then when it didn't materialize, those suppliers are left holding the bag. Now, did Ford split some of those costs? Maybe. Who knows? We don't know what happens. We're not on the inside of it. But my whole takeaway from that call, if that was a real call to suppliers to say, hey, we need you to reduce costs for EV components, to me, the whole call should have been about, what can we do to simplify? What can we do to eliminate process, eliminate complexity between us? What can we do? But because if we can't actually physically eliminate something, then there's really no way. Their costs are up. Their costs are probably double what they originally thought they were based on the volumes, if not triple. And so that's where I run into the issue. It should have all been around simplification. It should have been around elimination. How do we work better together, and how do we then dollarize that? Versus, hey, we need everybody to give us some, to basically cut your prices. So that's where I run into issues with this, and it's going to be tough for them to do this. It's going to be, by the way, for their next vehicle platforms, it's going to be really tough for their EV suppliers to believe them. This is the other side of this coin. A couple of years ago, when they would have signaled, hey, we're going to be at 100K a quarter, then 200K a quarter, those suppliers were probably gearing up because, Ford's a gigantic company, GM's a gigantic company, and they were gearing up and buying all that CapEx. Now, on the other side of this, the fact that they were so far off in their demand signals to suppliers, and they cost them so much excess, so much obsolescence, so much wasted cost, that when they actually go in and they have, and this all traces back to Ford not designing a product that meets the moment in terms of cost versus what consumers are willing to pay for. This is the root cause of this problem. If they had a $40,000 or $50,000 F-150, if they had a $35,000 Mach-E, and if they had, a better product, software, and so forth offering, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But they didn't meet that moment, and all this pain now is inflicted on the suppliers. So the reason I bring this up is when they actually do come up with that product, this low-cost product, will their suppliers believe them is the question. And they will have a difficult time, I believe, on the second go around if they try to re-ramp EV. And this is why I've theorized that all these companies that are pulling back, they will probably not reappear in EV in their original form. They may reappear as some sort of conglomerate or some sort of partnership to share burden and to share risk, because it's going to be tough for their supply base to believe them that they're really doing it. And think about it, it's going to be tough for them to put forth all that capital to invest when their ICE business is now in further decline than what it was 3 to 4 years ago. And so now they're going to be even in a much more difficult environment to invest. So a lot to unpack here, but I would say the call of suppliers should be around complexity reduction and driving simplification. Telling me I need to take my cost down when you reduce my demand signal 4 to 5 times and by 4x over the last year is a tough pill to swallow.
I love it, Jeff. I love it when you say things and then months later we see it. You were predicting this. You were already saying, when they were saying that we're going to reduce our demands, you said, okay, watch out. Suppliers are not going to be listening to you. They're going to be, and this is, we'll see what happens here. Thank you so much, Jeff. Follow him on X at the Jeff Lutz. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.